What it do, beautiful people? Big Drip signing in, man. Welcome to another edition of, we got a guest on the show.
Yeah.
Basically, we Jeffrey Ford, this man, he's been working in film for a long time. He's an editor, and mainly our main focus tonight will be the MCU and all the work he's done on next. He's been on, countless movies, and personally, I just want to say thank you because I love the MCU and I love everything they do. So we appreciate you, Jeff. Can you just holler at the people for me? Say hello to them.
Hi, I'm happy to be here, and thank you. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely, we appreciate you.
Yeah, I know. For me at least, I grew up reading Marvel comics, and then in 2008 to see them come to life the way they did, it was tremendously remarkable, and I feel like a lot of people behind the scenes don't get a lot of credit. Not necessarily you, but people that worked on the films, all these years, they don't get the same recognition as like Robert Downey Jr., say, who played a pivotal, obviously,
no, that's very
huge
true.
part, but there a lot of people work on movies, and it's nice to hear from everybody.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
But
absolutely.
as this past month has been, so we're running a campaign for my mother's breast cancer. So she was recently diagnosed with stage 4, so didn't really even get a chance to fight it or to have a chance at fighting it. So her medical bills are piling up. Prescription costs are really expensive, and chemo's even really expensive. So what we're doing is we're including a link below each video so that anyone watching and, has an extra few dollars to donate. I know it's the holiday season, but this campaign isn't going to go anywhere for a while. So even if you can't donate now, please in the future, or share the message because that's free. And I know she loves you guys for helping, and she'll come on and say thank you eventually. She's got a lot going on. So Jeffrey, again, thank you for joining us and helping us with this.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So, I guess we could start off with the icebreaker. Yeah. So all
right.
I got a little icebreaker. So
Okay.
Who is your personal favorite Avenger and why?
Oh, hit me, Jeff. I'd love to hear it.
Oh my God, that's a really difficult question. It's like asking me which one of my kids I like better, which is impossible. Well, I have to always say Cap, only because I have worked on his character since the beginning and really worked on almost everything he's ever done in the MCU in terms of cutting his performance. So I feel really, and also I did a movie with Chris Evans before I did first Avenger, a movie called Street Kings with Keanu Reeves.
Oh, that's directed by David Ayer, right?
Ayer,
yes.
Ayer.
Yeah.
Nice.
James Ellroy's script. It's really an interesting movie. And anyway, so I feel like I've known Chris, I feel like forever, and that character, what he did with that character over the course of those movies, it was so great. And his collaboration with the Russos and the way that they evolved that character, I thought was so brave and interesting. And I love what he did with it. And also, I kind of got into my entry into movie making was the movie kind of like first sort of like made me kind of sit up and take notice was the 1978 Superman movie by Richard Donner with Christopher Reeve.
Okay.
And that was like that's where I was like, because I was a big comic book, nerd too. And I read a lot of, Marvel and DC. And I was like, when I saw that movie, I was like, oh my God, movies can do it too, even in a better way.
Yeah.
Really emotional, intense experience. So that's the movie that got me going. And I always thought Chris was sort of like the next step in terms of that kind of like really real difficult characterization to play a guy who's so, who's so sort of he's just such a straight shooter. He's so like a morally, centered dude. That's a hard character to play with nuance. And I thought he brought a lot of detail to it.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it seems, it seems so genuine in his portrayal of that kind of, pure Boy Scout kind of morally driven kind of guy, and is that like abundantly clear working with him, like off camera? Like, can you just tell, like, those, like, he's not just playing a part. Like, I feel like this man truly has those kind of Captain America morals, and that's why he really hits the character the way he does. I don't think you can fake that.
No, I mean you can't. I mean you have to have that part of you has to be there for it to come through. But he's also a trained actor. I mean, he's studied, he's worked as an actor since he was very young. He's done theater. He's a very dedicated guy. I mean, he's not a guy that just shows up and learns the lines. I mean, he's thinking about it and studying and he's figured out, like he thinks it through. He's a very thoughtful actor. And so I feel like, he was perfect for that part. It came along at just the right time. And I've seen him, like I said, we did another movie together. He was great in that too. He's very, very, he has an incredible screen presence, but he can act. And I think that's not everyone can do that. There's people who are, popular movie star, movie stars who are in movies. They're not always the best actors. They just have that screen charisma. He's got both. He's got the skills and he has the charisma.
There it is.
I loved him in I loved Chris in Snowpiercer. I feel like
he's great in that.
Get a lot of credit for that movie.
Yeah.
No, everything he's done is like, I mean, he's done it. He stretches and challenges himself too. I mean, he's a good looking guy, so he's going to get those parts.
Of course.
He's played superheroes before, he was in Fantastic Four, the earlier version. So, he's been down that road, but he's good and he is a movie star.
Yeah. He's actually from like maybe 25 minutes from where I am, or where
he's from Massachusetts.
So I feel like just knowing that Captain America like grew up down the street, that's my boy, that's my buddy.
Whether he knows it or not, we're best friends. We're like this, whether he knows it or not.
He's a good guy. He's a really good guy. He's a good person too. He's like, he's great to work with. He's very appreciative and great to the crew. I mean, all of them are. I mean, I wish I could make up a story and say, they're all horrible, but they're not. They're super nice. I mean, they're a great group of people to work with, and they're very appreciative. And I think they're, they get it.
So with that said, out of the Marvel Cinematic, films that you've done, which I mean, like he said before, the list goes I was actually quite surprised to see how many you've actually like been. I mean, it's an extensive list. It's a long list. You got the hell of a resume. Yeah. One to be like seriously proud of. Out of the Marvel Cinematic films that you've done, which one was the most challenging and why? Like, which one was the most challenging as from a editing standpoint, not from a
editing, only editing.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't. I mean, I guess it could be. I guess I really just wrote that for myself, but however you want to answer it, whatever became the most challenging.
Well, I'll tell you, the hardest one was Iron Man 3, and the reason, and I'll tell you why. It wasn't anything that, like, you never know when you're going on a movie what's going to happen, and it's always a surprise that, like, what road you go down. So on Iron Man 3. It was complicated for a lot of reasons. And one of them was we had to make that movie very fast. It went into production, I believe in May. It might have been, it was May. And we had to deliver it by we had a year, not even a year. We had less than a year. We had like 10 months to finish, to make that movie. Wow. And because we had to deliver it in April for it to be released in May the following year. And we had just finished Avengers. So we were like, we could just come off of Avengers, delivering Avengers. And we were right into production on that. And it was a very ambitious movie with a lot of script. I mean, it was a much longer film than it ended up being. We shot more than we, needed, which is always the way you do things. But this was very ambitious. But what really made it complicated was we were closing in on, we had a lot of sort of the big finale to shoot. And Robert broke his ankle during his
Oh no. I remember hearing about that.
Yeah. So he was doing a jump. It's in the movie. Actually, the frame before he breaks his ankle is in the movie. He's jumping off, he's in a seaport and he's in his Tony Stark mode, and he's kind of like jumping. He's being chased by these guys, and at some point he's gonna jump right into an Iron Man suit, and he jumps across this landing. And he landed on his ankle, and it just went the wrong way. And Robert likes to do his own stunts when he can. And this one was on a wire and stuff. Anyway, we had to shut down, and we still hadn't finished shooting a lot of the movie. He's in every scene of that practically.
Of course.
So we had to edit before we finished, we always are editing while we're shooting, but now we had to figure out, because a movie like that, the biggest challenge is visual effects take a long time. And we had all those Ironman suits in that film. So it was going to take them a long time to generate all those digital effects. We couldn't wait for those, which means we had to figure out our story without actually having some of the photography. We had to kind of come up with the sequence using pre-visualization and storyboards and kind of like start working on those digital effects that were going to take months. And then we'd go back and shoot the pieces with Robert to integrate into them. So it was tricky. And then at the same time, you're previewing the movie and you're testing it and you're, showing it to people. So it was a challenge, but it was also really exciting because it was a movie that we really made in the editing. It was a script that evolved a lot during editing. And the guy who wrote it was also the director. So the writer was there to, shape that script. And it was, Shane Black, who's an amazing writer. And it was really interesting to watch him, change that movie into something new as we discovered things about the character. Cause it was really, we were finding things out about Tony as we were making that movie. So that was the most challenging one because it was changing and we had a big shutdown.
I again, remember I asked you about the thing earlier and I was like, it kind of hurt my ego to not know that. That also, I knew he broke his ankle. I just didn't know it was like that. I didn't. Yeah. So you said you have usually longer than that. How long do you usually have to, I mean, I guess it's different for every film, but what's your standard amount of time that you have to do your job?
Well, for a Marvel movie, they usually are about a year and maybe a year and a month, which doesn't seem like it's not really a lot of time. I mean, it's pretty fast, but when you take it down to 10 months, that's, you're cutting 3 or 4 months out. That's a lot of time when you're talking about, production of visual effects. So, I mean, an Avengers movie usually starts shooting a little bit earlier than, we have a little bit more time for the Avengers movies because they're usually more ambitious, and certainly Infinity War and Endgame were a much different approach because we shot both movies at the same time. So that was a 2-year, period. But again, remember, you have to finish one while you're working on the other. So they're all different. But I would say on average, it takes about a year to make a Marvel movie beginning to end. And that's not including the writing. That's just once you have a script ready and you're ready to start shooting, from the time you roll cameras until the time it's in the theaters, about a year.
Okay.
I mean, you guys tapped into something like really, really, really special with Infinity War and Endgame. Those two in particular, the pure beauty of them, regardless of being a superhero movie or, kind of genre based. Those are films that, I mean, you've worked on several movies that inspire a lot of people, and a lot of people go to the cinema to kind of escape the world for a couple hours. I know I do. So is it a little bit surreal to be a part of such a huge, like, you've kind of changed cinema, or the way that it connects, maybe not standalone movies anymore, whereas everyone kind of wants to connect everything. And
well, I mean, I'd like to think that, I grew up on that feeling, right? Like, I had movies to keep me from losing my mind when things were really tough in my life when I was younger. And I had, you're talking about your mom. I lost my mom to breast cancer. I lost my brother to brain cancer when he was very young. And that, when you're going through those things, and by the way, everybody goes through these things in life. It's not, nobody's immune to these tragedies and the difficulties. And, some people are struggling with money. Some people are struggling with addiction. Some people have cancer. There's all these things that really, life beats you down sometimes. And for me, movies and cinema that allowed me to, it gave me hope because like you said, it takes you to another place, but it also, there's when you see a story that you connect with, you understand you're not alone in those struggles. Right. So when I see, Indiana Jones dust himself off and keep going, then I'm going to dust myself off and keep going. Like, I learned I'm not going to give up. And that's, and like when Cap can do this all day, I can do it all day too. That's a meaningful thing to people of any age. And you may not tell people that you feel that way, but I can tell you that when that stuff happens to me and I feel that in a movie, I get it charges me up, and it's
absolutely,
let's do it too. You know, when you have a team that's going and you feel that energy that you're part of something. I mean, we need that, and God, we really need it right now because we are all separated. But the communal experience, being an audience member with other people. I mean, I got to tell you, there has never been a thrill in my life that's like going to an audience screening of Endgame. You know, when Cap catches that hammer, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's insane. And to be able to feel that with an audience and feel like you had some small part in making that happen was like, oh my God. And
you know, beautiful.
Well, we all grew up on that. You know, the Russos and I mean, the people, and Kevin Feige, the people made these movies that I made these movies with, we all grew up on that stuff. And we trade references back and forth from those things. So we're trying to give back in some ways. We were inspired by Lucas and Spielberg and all those guys in the same way they were inspired by their, you know, the people that came before them. So it's a generational, you know, we're trying to do it and give it our own message and our own spin. But, you know, it's a gift to be able to do that at that level. I'm, you know, super grateful that I was able to be part of this, because without having like fallen into the Marvel family and working with Kevin, who's really he's the guy behind all of it, as everybody knows. And then the Russos being brilliant filmmakers and people that I really just genuinely love. I mean, that having that opportunity it's been amazing. So for me, you know, it's a total dream come true.
That's Justice.
You know, it's in the future, you know, this next generation of filmmakers, because when I say the MCU, like, he was being modest, the MCU really did change everything in cinema. It really is like that now. Everybody wants to connect. Everybody wants their cinematic universe. I mean, the MCU really came in and flipped everything on its head. So it's exciting to see, especially, I would imagine, for yourself and the Russo brothers and Feige, for this next generation of filmmakers. You'll see that you were the ones to inspire them, right? You'll see little things that they do and little editing choices and little lines and little things like that, you know, little details that you can tell came from you and the MCU and Kevin Feige and the Russos and all of them. And it must be, honestly, I envy that, because it must be a beautiful thing to see, honestly.
No, it's great. I mean, look, it's also, you know, there's something about being able to, you know, people have invested in these characters cross generations. So, like, you know, some people are coming to these movies and they knew who Captain America was, and they knew who Thor was, they knew who the Hulk was, but there's people that never have heard of them that, you know, that were drawn in. So, you know, you're talking about these characters have had a long reach, and there's a reason why they've been so popular. You know, it's a reason why Spider-Man's so popular. It's like they just have an appeal that connects to things that we all go through. You know, who am I? What should I do? What's the right thing to do? And did I do the right thing? And what does it mean to make, you know, moral choices? These are stories that we need.
Right.
Yeah, you know, giving us idols, giving people kids. You know, I can genuinely say on a regular basis that first scene of Cap before he's Captain America, oh, I can do this all day. It runs through my mind on a regular basis. Things get tough, and it truly is like a beautiful thing to have. Like, I've always been a nerd. I've always been into comics. I've always been into superheroes and spandex and, you know, web swinging, all of it, right? I've always been into it, but now that, like, now it is touching, we call them normies, right? Now that like they're touching normies and they're like into it and they're like, they're seeing the same value that we've seen this entire time.
Right,
it really, like, it really gives me like I say it all the time on camera, like, we're winning. Us nerds, right? We're on top. We're doing the thing right now. This is the age of the nerd, and I love it.
Yeah.
You know?
I agree.
So you just, well, okay, so I just wanted to touch on this since you brought Cap catching Thor's hammer out. So someone had messaged me, and I didn't know this, and it hurt my ego, like I told you. So can you tell us the story about how you had a part in coming up with Iron Man's closing line in Endgame, the "and I am Iron Man" kind of, and then snap line? Because
sure. Well, first of all, the way these movies get made, and the movies that all the ones I've done at Marvel, they're very collaborative, and we have a group of people that work together. It's never like, you know, obviously the directors are incredibly important, and Kevin's, you know, incredibly important because he's, you know, really orchestrating the whole thing. But when we're writing them, when we're making them, when we're shooting them, there's a lot of contributions that get made, and you're pitching ideas. Everybody's trying to make the best thing we can. We're trying to solve problems with the story. We're trying to make them as exciting as we can, and we all bring those things to the movie. And what's interesting is a lot of times when you're making a movie, you actually find ideas because of a problem that you're trying to solve, which is why movies are so interesting, because they're puzzles. You start making them and you go, oh, this doesn't work. It's not confusing. It's confusing. It seemed good on the page, but now it doesn't work anymore. And when you're making a big movie like this, those things come up constantly. And so what happened with this one moment was we were shooting some motion capture, and we got to the end where, Tony's going to snap and he's faced off with Thanos. And we had already photographed the scene. We had already finished it. And as written, Thanos never really had a last line. He just took it and he looked at Tony and he snapped his fingers, and then it didn't work. And you realized Tony had gotten the stones. Right. That was the story as written, right? That Tony, one-upped him. He had the stones in his gauntlet and he had swapped them. So the idea was that was going to be the moment. It was a reversal. And we were shooting it. We realized this doesn't make any sense. Thanos would say something. Right. He'd say something at that moment. He'd say, I won. I beat you guys. And he'd that's just who he was as a character. And Brolin had arrogance. And Brolin had done that. And we were shooting with Josh one day, and we're like, we're shooting these, just having him do the movement. And we're realizing this needs to have a line. And so we tried a lot of different things. And we realized there's a thing in that Marcus and McFeely, the writers, had written into the script that was really awesome, which was Thanos would keep saying, I am inevitable. He kept saying it over and over.
Yes.
Because he was so sure that no matter what history, because the movie's about time travel, and so spoiler. And so we were doing this time travel story, right? So time travel is about how can you change the future? Can you alter your fate? Right. So it's about inevitability or the lack thereof. So Thanos should say, I'm inevitable. And we realized you're not. We changed you. We changed your inevitability. So we realized that's his last line. I am inevitable. And then we realized, well, then when we go over to Tony, what's he going to say?
Right. Yeah.
And so what is he? If Thanos is inevitable, Tony is
Iron Man.
It made perfect sense that I am inevitable and I am Iron Man. Boom. I blew it. You're done. And I think that's how we came up with the idea, but it was really about solving a problem with Thanos. Now, the writers on these movies are, constantly doing coming up with these ideas. The directors come up with ideas. I'm coming up with ideas. The actors are coming up with ideas. We all are contributing. So it isn't like I one day went, oh, I got a great idea. Let's go shoot this. It wouldn't work that way at all. We were all working together to try to draw it out. So Brolin had a part in it. Marcus McFeely had a part in it. The Russos had a part in it. I had a part in it. That's how you get a line like that. And by the way, we didn't have him saying that. We went back and shot that at the last minute because we didn't.
Really? Wow.
And we shot it on the soundstage in Hollywood, where Robert did his very first screen test when he tested out to decide if he was going to be Tony Stark. And literally almost on the exact spot where he did his first reading of Tony Stark dialogue for a camera to see if he was good.
Talk about full circle. That's amazing.
Well, it was amazing. It was so crazy. And it was a very emotional day, and he killed it and was amazing. And that's so awesome. It was a big, I will not forget that. That was a pretty amazing moment. And it really brought him full circle, because that was the end of Iron Man when he says that. That's a really interesting way to launch a superhero movie. Like normally you have a secret identity and who are they and blah, blah. Yeah. He's got a confidence and a brio about who he is, and he just says it, and that's why people love him so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. At the time, you're right. Absolutely. Everybody. Tony was the first hero that we got on screen anyways that was like that, was willing right off rip to say, I am Iron Man. There was no secret identity. There was no hiding it, and he was such an egomaniac that I think that's why people were so appealed to it. Right. Because again, at the time in cinema, we haven't seen a hero like Tony. We've never seen an arrogant, egotistical, playboy, genius superhero. So I think that's really why I think, in hindsight's 2020, right? But looking back on it, I think Tony Stark, but Bruce hides it. Bruce hides it. Bruce is putting on
no one knows he's Batman. There's not a lot of secret identities in the Marvel universe. They're more like, in fact, a lot of times they pay for being superheroes by, that's always the problem, right? That their problem is that they're a superhero. Like the Hulk is a monster and he's going to hurt people. We got to run from him. And so they feel kind of, it's different. Like there's an interesting, I don't know if you guys have seen Kill Bill, right?
Of course.
So there's that great monologue at the end of Kill Bill from David Carradine talking about why Superman is an interesting character, because he's hiding in a way, or he's not, that it's like, he's
Clark Kent is the mask.
That's an interesting conceit. I always loved that idea. And interestingly, when you take that away, you get to more of a reality, because then you can kind of get to who this person would be in a real context. And so I think and also these movies are often about identity in the same way that the Harry Potter books are. It's like, who am I? Where did I come from? And what am I supposed to do? Right? Those are the basics. Luke Skywalker, all those sort of archetypal, characters are always asking, who am I? And so are we. So that's what connects you a lot. So I think with Tony, he's doing that same thing, but he's just doing it as as Robert, who's like this unique personality who you think he doesn't wonder who he is. He's confident. No, he's not. He doesn't. And by the way, Iron Man 3, which we were talking about earlier, that's a movie about where he loses himself. He loses his identity suit, and he's consumed by it. And the movie is about how you can create your own undoing by losing your identity in what you do in work. And I think that's why it's an interesting movie.
I guess this wouldn't be off topic. So I'm sure you know about what Jon Favreau is working with on The Mandalorian, the volume.
Yep.
So as an editor and someone who does what you do, would you be interested in using that kind of technology that kind of brings pre-production on camera, or like while you're shooting the movie and post-production all into like kind of work together simultaneously? Like, is that something that you would be interested in doing?
I'd
awesome.
love. It's amazing technology, and I haven't actually gotten a chance to use it or work with it yet, and I'm looking forward to when I can. But what's great about it is it does something that is really critical, which is you can photograph the moment and see it through the lens while you're photographing it. And I don't know if you guys have ever made films of your own, but when you're making a film, you're shooting, and you're part of the way you make a film is you're intuitive. You look through the lens and decide where you want to put the camera, right? It's not like the shot in your head and you just say, make this shot. You actually kind of find it, right? You find it on the day, and the actor might do something that makes the camera move in a certain way. You have that ability and that flexibility to intuitively shoot that way. Whereas when you have to composite it later, you have to kind of guess that maybe it's going to work. It is an incredible tool for cinematographers and filmmakers, because it allows you to do things that were previously really difficult to do without a lot of intense visualization. You can now be intuitive. So I love the idea. I can't wait for it to become more,
relevant. Yeah.
It's expensive, and it is very difficult to do correctly right now. And he's dialed it in. Favreau's dialed it in. You can see from the work he's done on Mandalorian. It's amazing. So that's going to be the future. Right now, it's still like all these things in technology, they happen, and you go, oh my God, that would be amazing. And it takes a while for it to get to the rest of us.
Absolutely.
Even a big budget movie, it's still expensive.
Right. Because Disney, I had heard that they're building like 2 or 3 more of them at the moment.
It's becoming very popular. Yeah, they are building more of these. Yeah.
Which I have a little bit of issue sometimes with The Mandalorian, but that's not because of the way it's filmed. It's more of like,
what's your issue?
It's other things, yeah. But I love the show. I do.
I do too. I find it really relaxing because he like walks a lot and he takes naps, and I think right now pandemic time. He just basically has to like shuttle somebody somewhere, and then he like meets somebody and then kills a dragon or whatever.
Yeah.
My initial thought seeing this, and he had explained it to me afterwards, after I already finished the first season, my initial was like, this looks like a video game. Like, I feel like I'm like watching a Fallout movie. Yeah. And once he explained to me what they're actually using, I was like, oh, because that's what game studios use, essentially. It's roughly the same thing.
But it's also
in a way.
Yeah. It's also, you guys have seen 2001 Space Odyssey, right?
Of course.
Okay. So Kubrick used very similar technology to photograph the apes. They're in front of a projected screen. And by the way, Superman 1978, Superman flying was all done with that front screen projection process. Similar idea.
Oh, really?
No, yeah. Well, they would photograph the city from a helicopter and then project that on a screen and put the actor in front of it and then rephotograph it. So
George Lucas liked it as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's been around. I mean, it's been around before you could do compositing, so it's not new technology in terms of the concept. But what's amazing about what Favreau's doing is you can control, you can really have photorealistic, immersive, 360-degree kind of work, and you can actually put those characters in that space in a way that you could never do it before. But again, the idea of, oh, by the way, if you ever get the chance to, Wizard of Oz, which it was made in 1939, I believe, or 38.
Yes, 39.
The sequence where she's running from the tornado before it hits the house, it's amazing. I mean, it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And that's the same technology, or the same premise, which is an image is projected and the actors are in front of it, and it looks like it's right there. That sequence is still unbelievably thrilling, 70 years later. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah. There's a reason that movie went down in history the way it did.
It's amazing.
I'm 24 years old, right? And the first time I watched that movie was like, I don't know, 2005, maybe, right? Many decades after the movie released, but it still blew me away. I was like, wow, this movie's great. And then for years on, I continued to watch it. My mother's a huge fan, so we would sit around and watch it. It's truly a cinematic classic.
But it shows you too, just, design and like ideas can be, I mean, they're timeless when they're that good. And just the way that whole thing looks. I mean, yes, of course, there's scenes that look dated now in terms of like technology, but think about what they were pulling off in 1939 before they barely had color.
Yeah, there's movies that came out in like the 60s where I'm like,
oh my God. Now,
Jeff, mind you, in the year 2077, they're going to be saying the same thing. There's going to be a group of guys doing a little interview, and they're going to say the same thing about your movies.
Oh my God, I hope so.
Absolutely. I can say with confidence that final scene in Endgame, that whole final conflict, that's going to go down for a long time, and it's going to, I promise you that. Absolutely.
Oh my God, God bless you.
No, God bless you.
You recently worked on Let Him Go, right?
Yeah. I love that movie.
I just watched it like last night. Well, because I saw it, I believe it or not, I think I saw the trailer for it. I don't even remember when it was. I think it might have been when we saw New Mutants. But I mean, Kevin Costner and Diane Lane, like I was like, all right, this looks good. And I just watched it. It was a really fantastic film. Got generally positive reviews. Was it fun to work with? Like maybe come out of the Marvel side of things and go work on a film?
Well, when I finished Endgame, it was in April of 2019, and I was like, I was sort of fried. So I went on a road trip with my family, and we drove around the country and stuff. And then when I got back to LA, my friend Tom Pazuka, who directed Let Him Go, was like, hey, I need some help on my edit, and I'm done shooting, but I got to cut it. And can you help out? I'm like, yeah, let me, because we had done a couple other movies together, Monte Carlo and Family Stone. Yeah. So I was like, Tom, I'd love to, let's do it. And so we worked on it together, and, I love the material and I love the actors, and he's a great guy to work with. And also has family in Massachusetts, by the way. And so it was really, I really had a great time. And also I like that tone. I like that sort of like gothic Western-y kind of, where are we? And the photography is amazing, and it looks like Terrence Malick. And anyway, it was a fun experience. And I loved what Diane Lane particularly did with the performance, which was just some great stuff. And also Costner playing a slightly different character than he usually does. He's much quieter. He isn't quite as in charge, right? He's more reflective. And I think he's a really underrated actor because he has so much depth. And and then the other great thing was the score is by Michael Giacchino, who did the other two movies that Tom Pazuka and I did. And Giacchino and I did so we did Family Stone, Monte Carlo, and Let Him Go, but we also did Doctor Strange together. I worked a little bit on Doctor Strange, which was a Marvel movie, but Michael's a great composer. I mean, he's like amazing. And so like to get to work with, Tom and Michael on that was like, I couldn't pass that up. And it was fun to do that. And then after that film, I did a miniseries for Showtime called The Comey Rule, which was about James Comey and Donald Trump, which we shot right after Let Him Go and delivered it in July. So
I didn't see that.
It's on Showtime.
You are a busy man, my friend.
Well, this one was fun because it was, it's Jeff Daniels is playing Comey, and Brendan Gleeson, who's amazing in a million movies. He's an incredible Irish actor playing Donald Trump. And it was the first performance of somebody playing Trump that wasn't a parody. It was like
like an SNL.
No, it's a straight up real deal. If you see it's on Showtime, and it's actually it turned out beautifully, and it's all based on Comey's book and some journalism by the director. So it's pretty interesting movie. But those were great. It was a great change of pace to work on that material.
Right.
Not that I don't love Marvel, I do, but it was so nice to be able to go, oh, this is a different world.
Kind of step back into reality again, just get out of fantasy for a little bit. I get it, of course.
Yeah. And it's always good to do different things. I think as an artist or as a technician or as a crafts person, it's always good to stretch.
Kind of like brings your HP back up to where it needs to be.
Also, you get a different, when you come back to, when you change it up, your perspective's fresh. You have objectivity again about what you're doing.
Speaking of that, so you don't have to say anything. I don't. We don't like to pry and to ask questions that we know we can't get an answer to. But are you going to? So, would you be interested, or is there anything planned to work with Marvel again, or at Disney Plus? Like, is there anything you'd be interested in?
I probably shouldn't answer.
I figured as much.
I didn't know if that was stepping the line too much. Like if you would like to work.
Let me tell you this.
Again.
I am working with them again.
Okay.
And I'm going to leave it at that for now.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what I will do though is when that's ready, I'm happy to come back and talk to you guys again about
it. That's my guy.
I would love to, and I'll tell you all about it. But I have to keep it under my vest right now, but only because it's we're still. It's all. I don't want to get too much into it because you're going to ask me questions and I'm going to want to answer them, and I don't. I want you guys to see it. But let's just say it's coming out, and I hope to God it comes out in. There's a couple
soon.
things.
Yeah,
and I want you to see it soon. One of them will be.
That's my guy. That's my guy.
Him and I the other day, we just looked at each other, and like just for a second, I was like, "Did you?" I mean, the sheer number of things that they said during their investors call, it was overwhelming.
Oh my God! By the way, I was like, oh my God! I know those guys, and I'm like, what are you doing?
30 some odd projects got it.
I was gonna ask you about that. Like, I'm
getting a Moon Knight show. I'm so happy.
So that's what I was gonna ask you. Like, were you aware of just the sheer number they were throwing at us with projects coming up?
Well, I knew about a bunch of them, and I'll tell you the one I'm really excited about, and I've seen some of it. And all I can tell you is it's gonna blow your mind. Is the What If? That is so good.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
You guys are gonna go crazy. I mean, it's really, really cool ideas, and the stuff they came up with is like you're like, what? That's the greatest idea I've ever heard.
What?
Wait, okay, Jeff. By all means, tell if I don't think I am, but if I'm pushing too far, please, by all means,
go ahead.
Slap me in the mouth. But do you know if they have intentions? Is What If gonna be is this like a one-time thing? Or are we going to see more of this in the future? Because, God, I hope we're getting more than just that initial.
Well, look, I would say that if it's successful, they'll do more. And they have, there's a series. I mean, there's a bunch of stories. There's not one. There's like a few. I think it's, I don't want to go on record, but I think it's, I can't remember how many there are. Each series, even, WandaVision is I think, I can't remember how many, but each series has a different number of episodes. So like they're not all just like 5 or 6 or whatever. And so they vary. And part of that's for this is as many as we can do right now. But if people like them, then there's a future for that. But I do think that one's an anthology type show, which means I think, and I don't quote me because I haven't seen it finished. I just know what the premise was. But each there's different stories each time, and they can make more.
Because I was just explaining to him what anthology is. It's not a word a lot of people just know.
It's not they don't continue between. I mean, and also that show, as the premise is sort of like, what if this happened? In other words, what if this character were really, these characters' positions were switched, and how would that evolve over the course of it? Which I think is a fun premise, especially.
God, I love it.
It's really cool, and the animation is amazing.
And I love that they got Jeffrey Wright to narrate it, and his voice is just. I mean, it's perfect. Cool. It's soothing. It's soothing, but in a way, it's I don't know. I don't know.
It's like a nice cup of tea after a long day.
Yeah.
A
No, it's
hot
good.
cup of
He's
tea
got
out
an
of a
incredible
cold
voice.
long day. I love it.
So
Very excited.
you worked on another movie that's one of my favorites, and that's Public Enemies.
Oh, cool! I'm so glad you said that. I love that movie.
Film. Absolutely.
Love it.
Was that a fun ride? Because Michael Mann directed it, right?
Yeah.
So what was that experience like? So what was?
Well, I'm a huge fan of his. I mean, he was my hero before I knew him, before I met him, before I had, I consider that like one of the greatest experiences of my career to be able to work with him. I think I put him in the same, I put him on the same pedestal as Scorsese or William Friedkin or any of those guys. He's up there with them. I think he's one of the great American filmmakers. I think he is unbelievable. I think Manhunter is a masterpiece. I think Thief is amazing. I think Last of the Mohicans is amazing. I think even when he does crazy stuff that's like I'm not in 100% like Miami Vice, the movie, but there's still amazing stuff in it. Like I'm like, there's still stuff I go to his movies to learn how to make movies. The same way I watch Scorsese and try to learn how to make movies. Those are the filmmakers that teach you, like Friedkin and Coppola and they all teach you how to make movies when you watch them. And so to be able to work with Michael on a movie was like a masterclass that it changed me as a filmmaker completely in a good way. And it was the hardest job I've ever had. And there's nothing even close. No Marvel movie has even come close to the level of intensity that it is to work on a Michael Mann movie. Nobody, and then you ask any editor, if you ever talk to other editors on your show, anybody that's worked with Michael will tell you this. It's like, it is like going through Navy SEAL training. If you can get through that, you can get through anything.
Wow.
But I love that movie. It didn't get a ton of, it doesn't get a ton of love, but it's an underrated movie. I think I wouldn't put it in, his like top tier kind of films, because there are issues with it that I understand, but Bale's amazing in it. Depp is really good in it.
Yes, he
Marion
is.
Cotillard's really good in it. Jason Clarke is really good in it. And there's some stuff in that movie that I just think is sublime and amazing. So,
and I agree with you that it doesn't get enough recognition or love. And you know what? You're even right about it not being his best work. However, there's something that hit me and it clicked. And like, for me personally, it's one of my favorites to watch if I'm, just, trying to check out or whatever it is. So, I guess beauty is in the eye of the beholder for that one.
Yeah. Well, I'm on the exact opposite. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about Public Enemies. Every time I've ever brought up that movie, everybody's like, yeah, I love that movie.
Just go to the internet.
There's just, that character is a fascinating character. That period's fascinating. And I think
it is.
There's a moment in that movie where he's being taken to prison. He's riding through the streets. He just land this plane in the rain, and there's these torches, and they put him in this car, and he's in the car, and he realizes the streets are lined with people, and they're cheering him, and they're like, it is such a movie about what this. It's so interesting what that means in this country, like the notion of celebrity. Also just the idea of a changing world, and what he meant to people in this insane way. And he was like he's a really interesting character as well, because these are people who didn't have another day that they thought they were going to live. They always thought today was the day I'm going to die. And when you live that way, your approach to life is very different than if I'm going to try to, have a family. And this is a guy who thinks I'm going to die today. And every day he wakes up, he thinks he's going to die. That is a fascinating character study.
Yeah.
That's very true.
I think this one goes for me, Justice and I. So I know, again, this is going to be a really hard question for you.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite movie?
Do I have a favorite movie? Oh my God,
I guess
have so many.
To follow it up with this, I've always wanted to ask this to someone. I forgot to ask it to a couple of the actors that we've spoken to. But when you make film, is it hard to go watch film for pleasure? I just always thought, like, if you've seen behind the curtain, is it changed the way you watch a film?
It does. I'll make you this analogy, and I don't know if it makes sense, because it's the best I can come up with, which is that if you play an instrument, say you play guitar, right? And you play guitar and you study and you work and you work and you work, and then you see Eddie Van Halen, and you're like, oh my God, like, you know, that's amazing. You know how hard it is. And when it's great, it's not only great, it's great on a level that you can appreciate because you know how hard and detailed that work is. Now, he's blessed. He has a talent, right? You know, I watch Jimi Hendrix. I'm like, oh my God, how do you do that? Right. Like, how can someone do that? Or by the way, pick any musician, by the way, in my mind, it's like, you know, the level of accomplishment that you can watch, and like, you know, Prince, whoever, like, anybody who's like so good, you can't even believe they're a human being. Like, so like, so when you watch movies, when I watch Coppola or Orson Welles or, you know, William Friedkin or Michael Mann, when I watch their movies, I'm like, I don't even understand how you can be that good. It's so for me, those are my favorites. I mean, I have favorites that kind of rotate through, and I'm an older guy, so my favorites might feel a little dated to you guys, but I mean, I can tell you I have 3 that kind of float around that I always sort of like keep coming back to more than any other. The first is a movie called Hannah and Her Sisters by Woody Allen, which is with you know, Mia Farrow, Diane Wiest, and it's and Barbara Hershey from 1986, I believe, and it's a comedy. It's set in New York. It's very dated in a way. It's from a director who, you know, has kind of disappeared now because of all the issues. But the movie is a really unbelievably moving and powerful movie about hope. Beautifully acted, incredibly shot, and it really is a time capsule of what New York was like in the mid '80s. And I think it's a really, really beautiful and kind of perfectly written movie. So I love that movie. Okay. It was kind of also the first movie I thought this is like a movie for adults when I was younger. But in fact, I watch it. I mean, I watch it still to this day, and it brings me hope. It lifts me up. So that's one. The other I just think is an underrated film that I keep going back to learn about movies is a movie called Sorcerer by William Friedkin from 1977.
I do know Sorcerer.
And it had it's a really interesting movie. It was a remake of a French movie called Wages of Fear. And it's about these guys who are criminals and they're hiding out in South America, and they have to drive these trucks across a mountain pass, and the trucks are filled with nitroglycerin, and they have to get it to this oil well they're trying to put out a fire. Okay. So these guys are driving these trucks with explosives in the back. Yeah. And the reason these guys are doing it is because they have no way out of this. They're all kind of on the run from the law. So if they can pull off this job, they can get extradition and they can get out and they can get back to the world. But they're stuck having to do this incredibly risky job, and they're killers. They're like, one guy's it's Roy Scheider is the lead, but they're, you know, one guy's a bank robber, one guy's a PLO terrorist, one guy's a white collar criminal from Paris. So there's all these guys who are really bad dudes and have nothing to lose, and you kind of end up rooting for them, even though they're horrible people. Anyway, incredible filmmaking, all shot on location in Mexico, and then. Usually my top number one favorite movie, just because I'm an editor and this is sort of the kind of thing that I love, is The Conversation with Gene Hackman, which is a movie by Francis Coppola from 1974. Okay. Which is a thriller and with a twist, and has the best twist ending of any movie I think I've ever seen. But it's slow. It's very methodical, and it's about a guy who's a wiretapper, and he records a conversation between two people who he thinks are planning a murder, and he has to decide how he can stop that because he feels responsible to do this. So it's a really interesting movie, kind of a Watergate era movie. Now these are older movies, you know, because I'm an older guy, but I also have, like, you know, evergreen kind of, you know, things that I always watch, like The Right Stuff from 1984, Philip Kaufman's movie about the astronauts, or the Mercury program, amazing movie. You know, so like there's all these movies that sort of like are super important to me, but again, you know, it changes. You're like, as you change your favorite movie, you know.
You know, Jeff, I think you love. I think you have something that I from what you know, this is strictly from a viewer point, right? Like, because I've never been on the set, I don't know, but this is from what I can tell. I think you have something that is genuinely lost in a lot of films, and that's a genuine, real love for filmmaking and films in general. I can tell just by the way you described all those movies and the conversation we've had. I can see the real love there, and I think movies that tend to fail, I think that's why, if you ask me, because the love for not only film but for if we're using comics, for example, you know, the source material, if that genuine, it doesn't even necessarily have to be love, but genuine appreciation and understanding needs to be there.
Well,
right?
what are your
I think
favorite movies?
You actually have that. So mine now you're gonna be because I very much am a nerd, but
that's okay. I mean, I love those too.
It would be things like The Dark Knight.
Great movie.
You know what I love a lot too? Requiem for a Dream. That's
excellent movie. Really good movie. Yeah.
Very good movie. I'm also very quotable kind of guy. So I love things like Training Day, Friday. You know,
Training Day is amazing.
Training Day is a great movie, and I think that's it gets slept. Yeah, I think it gets slept on a lot. Denzel Washington is very high on my list.
Incredible screenplay.
Great actors. Yeah. Absolutely.
My three are weird because like my number one will always be Titanic, and it's just
it's a great movie.
It's a great weird movie.
It really awesome.
Is. Yeah, it's like a weird relationship that I have with Leonardo DiCaprio.
But it's a good movie.
So
it's a good movie.
I tell people that and they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, listen, it's
nah, I don't blame
okay. It's between me and that movie, okay? But Winter Soldier comes close.
Okay. Oh my God!
And he knows I
love that movie.
I've said it how many times in my life? I don't even know.
I love
but Winter Soldier.
That was one of my favorite movie making experiences I've ever had.
Just from the minute the Marvel logo came off the screen to the last second, just heart pounding, like go, and it didn't include a lot of that mystical, like, you know, it was very much a political thriller.
Yeah,
and it was such a nice change of pace to the MCU. And I tend to have relationships with films, so you know, everything went well that day. And then I saw Winter Soldier, and it just clicked for me. And,
that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. That's that movie for me. And then after that, probably Pulp Fiction or something.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, that's a
that
good one. Yeah, really that's a good one. Tarantino, as far as directors, it's like Nolan and Tarantino. Like they're just by far my favorites.
Yeah, he's great. Really great.
Would you like to work with Quentin?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean,
of course.
My buddy, my friend, I don't know him that well, but he's a colleague from Marvel, Fred Raskin, who did Guardians of the Galaxy. He's works with Quentin. He cuts his movies. And I'm just, whenever I run into him or talk to him, I'm like, I just want to bow down. Like he's great. But he has this, you know, he has this front row seat at making these films. And he's done such a great job with the films done with Quentin and you know, what a great relationship to have on something like that. I mean, for me, I'm sort of like, that's like, I think it would be amazing. It's not the road that I went down. But I've grown to like Tarantino's movies more and more over the years. Yes, when I was younger, I dismissed them and I didn't see how good they were. And I've watched them again and like I keep discovering more things about him. I think he's a very well regarded director. He's deserving of that praise. I think he's very talented.
You know, I think I could say the same because for years and years I was like, you know, it's too much for me.
Yeah.
And then I went back. I was on this kick of like going back to things I hate and watching them again with a different angle. Right. Star Wars, Quentin Tarantino movies specifically. And I was like, what was I talking about? What's wrong with me? Like clearly I'm the problem.
Things are different in different ages. You know, like some movies you see when you're younger and they stick with you for one reason, and then later they don't seem to work as well.
Yeah.
Same thing with like when you're older, you see stuff. Oh, I'll give you an example. So there's a Martin Scorsese movie called The Color of Money with Tom Cruise and Paul Newman. Oh, and I saw it when I was about 19 or 20. I was in college and I identified with Tom Cruise, right? I thought this is a pretty good movie. I kind of like get what he's about. It's about a pool hustler. It's the sequel to The Hustler. It's about a pool shark.
Okay.
And he's learning from this older guy who is the master, and then it's the master and the apprentice story. And it's a good movie. It's a good Scorsese movie. But I identified with Tom Cruise. Then I saw it again like a couple years ago, and I identified with Paul Newman because I'm like, I'm in my 50s now, so I'm like, oh my God, I'm the old guy. He's the guy that's what the movie was about. I didn't realize it when I was younger. You can watch that movie from two different eyes, and a lot of them are that way. And you go, oh my God, I hadn't even thought about.
It's funny. It's funny you bring that up because I'm a big fan of animated, right? Like to this day, I that's why I love Disney Plus so much because I'm a huge Disney guy, and it's the same exact thing. Like, when you're a kid, you watch a movie like Lion King, right? Or like Finding Nemo, something of that sort. Two excellent films, if you ask me. And you just, as a child, you look at it a child's perspective, right? Oh, bright colors. I like lions. Lions go roar, and they have claws, right? That's really the basic of it. But then you rewatch it as an adult, and I did anyways, rewatch them, and especially Finding Nemo, like it's a very it's a lot of emotional, in-depth kind of tones,
touching themes.
Yeah, themes.
Sure.
That's the word.
They can be some of the best movies.
Yeah, and that's why Pixar, they just
amazing.
Blow me away with everything they do. They really do.
Yeah,
they're great.
So, Jeff, I don't know how long you have.
Good,
but you're good.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
That's my man.
Some
Jeff,
people
do you do animated films?
I'd love to. I've never done one.
Really?
Yeah, my wife many years ago worked on a movie called Prince of Egypt, which was DreamWorks' first.
I love that movie.
Yeah, she worked on that, and she was working she was a PA. She was just getting started out, but she told me stories about how that was done, and she was at the recording sessions with the actors singing and stuff. Amazing process and really complex. I'd love to see how that works. The Marvel movies are semi-animated anyway, because there's so much CG and motion capture work, but I would love to do one. I haven't had the chance. I'm hoping that someday I can do that. And the people I know at Pixar, everybody I've met who's worked at Pixar or who has worked on those movies is like just unbelievably great. So I feel like they have it's like Marvel, like you really a good group of people. So I'd love to do one someday.
Yeah. You come out, if you work with a studio like Pixar and you do a completely animated movie, and then you come back and you work with Marvel, and now you have that knowledge from the animated side, and it makes things like CGI and motion capture just a little bit easier.
Totally.
So we were talking to Ray Porter, who plays Darkseid and Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Right.
Are you before I ask the question, are you a DC fan of the films right now?
Oh, well, depends.
Like Zack Snyder's interpretation specifically?
How can I answer this? So, here's the interesting thing. Like Zack Snyder's movies there's some incredible photography and shots, and like his ability to like translate comic book imagery and sort of incredibly dramatic imagery to a cinematic frame. Like that, there's a fight in Batman versus Superman where Batman just cleans house in this, like, I think he's saving Diane Lane actually.
Yes, he is. Yeah,
that's amazing.
The warehouse scene. Yeah,
it's amazing. Like that, I sit there with my jaw on the ground. I'm like, that's incredible. Like that, there's moments of virtuoso filmmaking in his work. So I find him to be sort of like there's moments of breathtaking filmmaking. My problem typically is that I just don't always understand the emotional like aspect of the movies, and I guess I'm because of it might be my age, it might be my background just from the movies that I grew up on, but I don't really understand his interpretation of Superman. The way a lot of people do.
I should probably just let you guys talk for the rest of the hour.
Nor do I.
No, I get it. I mean, look, people come down on two sides, but it's not wrong. Here's the thing. I don't think those characters can be interpreted one way. I think it's important to remember that. Yeah, no, I don't think like nobody, if you're making an adaptation, like Christopher Reeve took a shot, it was different than other actors had done. So he doesn't always have to come out that way. I'm not saying that's the only way to approach it. Same way that, I think, Spider-Man has been interpreted by many actors, obviously, and they all have something interesting going on.
Different.
Absolutely.
In the same way that, like, the Hulk, or I should say Bruce Banner, has been interpreted, I think, very successfly, a couple of times.
Twice.
On television.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I like Bill Bixby and I love Ruffalo. And Norton's characterization is good, but I mean, I just think those others there's just like these characters have been done by other people now. And I'm not trying to make this comparison, but
of course.
And so when I make this analogy, I'm going to sound like a pretentious loser, but you see how many times different actors have played Hamlet, right?
Yes.
And there's like, I mean, Laurence Olivier and Mel Gibson and Ken Branagh, and they're all different, and they're all interesting. I mean, there's different interpretations of these characters. Not to say that Batman is Hamlet, but or Superman is Hamlet, but I think Batman's a good example.
Batman is a great example.
Bale is unbelievable in that part. Like, it's crazy. Who's going to beat that? I don't know if anybody is. I don't think Ben Affleck did personally. I think Bale wins.
Ooh, you know what? You guys would be best friends. I'll tell you that right now.
Yes, we are, Jeff.
I do know that I don't like George Clooney in the part. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, again, you guys would make a really good team.
Val Kilmer beats, and Michael Keaton beats Val Kilmer and George Clooney.
Yes, he was telling me the other day. He's like, you know, Ty, everyone that we've had on, or everyone that we talk to, is always loving everything that you love. He's like, when can we talk to someone that doesn't like all that stuff?
You're that guy, Jeff.
You're that guy, man.
But are you guys excited about the Justice League?
I
want to see it. I'm totally interested in seeing it.
Excited is not the word, but of course I'll be there. You know, I have a duty as a nerd to be there, right? Like, I have a moral code. I have to watch this movie whether I like it or not, right? You know, so I'll be there. Excited isn't the word.
I am. So what people like about him and I is that we don't always agree on everything.
That's okay.
We don't agree on most, honestly.
Honestly, on most things, at least for as far as this, but it makes for interesting conversation.
Absolutely.
And I like Snyder, and I like his work, and I've always loved his work. So, and he.
What do you think is his best film? 300.
So, we were just talking about this the other day.
I'm asking. I don't know.
I'd say Dawn of the Dead. I love that.
Well, I wouldn't say that was his best film, because it was like he was still learning how to make film at the time. Like, he was still working on finding his. It is a great movie. I do think that 300 has its. I think that 300 or Batman vs Superman, the Ultimate Edition, the way it was supposed to be seen, are two of his best pieces.
Now, I'll tell you, I saw Batman vs Superman in. I saw it in 35 millimeter. I'm sorry, digital DCP.
Yeah.
I saw it in IMAX.
Yeah.
And I saw it in 70 millimeter film. I saw it 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I saw it because I was fascinated by how it felt different in those different formats.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, the IMAX version of that movie is amazing. Like, it's so beautiful and it has so much incredible, like, detail.
Well, you know, Jeff, I was thinking about it when you said it earlier. I 100% agree with you, Zach, and the DCEU in general. Their imagery is absolutely, I've said it since the beginning, since it started. The way they really have this, like, with Marvel, it seems like, you know, you just take these characters and you put them in New York. That's it, right? But on the DC side of it, it seems more like, I feel more like, oh, I'm in Gotham or I'm in Metropolis, you know, and they really have this beautiful way of imagery and making things look like a comic panel. And that I do love about what they do.
I mean, I would say that if someone said, what's the difference between those two universes, between Marvel and DC? Like, what's the defining difference in how those things have been approached? A lot of people would say, oh, well, the Marvel thing's all interconnected. And I don't actually think that's the biggest difference. I think casting's the biggest difference. I think the level of casting, like the way they cast the Marvel movies is different. They approach it differently than the way they cast the DC movies.
Okay. Yeah.
And I find that for me, and I'm just saying, just personally, the Marvel approach is better for me, just the way I look at things. And again, when I look back at the movie that really lit my fuse, which was Superman from 1978, that movie the Marvel approach was that movie used the Marvel approach, or at least now it's called the Marvel approach. Back then it was the Superman approach. But where you put Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman and you know, incredible actors in these parts, and said, let's get these powerhouse actors and make them the stars of this thing, and they can be as exciting as the characters, because you know, you have an understanding of what Marlon Brando means to a movie. And so even though it felt kind of crazy to do that, it brought some acting chops to that movie that made it feel serious and legitimate in a way that it wouldn't have otherwise. Same with Bale. You know, put Bale, Aaron Eckhart, Heath Ledger, you know, Meg Gyllenhaal, all these people in that Dark Knight movie. Michael Caine, for God's sake. I mean, Gary Oldman, for God's sake. I mean,
it was literally so good.
That's the greatest cast ever.
Yeah.
So good. And I'll tell you, by the way, I went to school with Matt Reeves, who's making the Batman movie right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about Patterson too.
Listen, all I can tell you is I think Matt is one of the most incredible filmmakers, and I went to school with him. He's a friend.
Very excited.
I adore him as a person, but I would say anybody, if you want to be excited about something coming up, I would be excited about that movie because Matt made those films,
Planet of the
Apes.
Apes.
I think those are amazing movies. I love
them
those
too.
movies. I'm not just saying that because he's my friend and like I know him. I really legitimately walk out of those theaters. I just am tears in my eyes, and as a father, like it's just they're unbelievably moving. And Matt I think he'll knock it out of the park. I just can't wait to see what he does with it. I don't want to even know anything about it till I walk in and see it. I just am so excited about what he's
doing. I think you'd like this. So we on Christmas Day, him and I are working with one of the theaters with National Amusements, and I don't know if you know Regal Cinemas.
Yeah. You guys have theaters going right now?
Yeah.
So at first we were working with AMC, but they shut those down. So we made our producer made a couple phone calls to Regal and National Amusements, and we're gonna go to the theater on Christmas Day, and we're gonna do a live show, kind of promoting, instead of people watching Wonder Woman on HBO Max, come back to the theaters. And we're gonna do our show live from there, and kind of get people like, this is what they're doing to like make sure you're safe and get people back, hopefully, to get
it's so scary with that stuff. I just it's like, I mean, we can't in LA. I'm in LA right now, and as we're talking, it's like in the middle of this sort of surge, and it's friends who are healthcare workers, and it's terrifying. So just be safe. That's all I'm saying.
Well, of course.
LA by no means is the place for that at all. So
no.
Our approach, right? So what happened was originally it was with AMC, right? And it was in the heart of Boston. But not too long ago, the mayor said, all right, well, it's getting cold out again. So numbers are going to go up again. So we got to shut all this down. So what we did is we went to a much smaller town, and we went to their local theater. Our producer approached them like, hey, do you think we could possibly use this one? Because just for the simple fact that the population of said town is much lower, chances are things will be safer, right? There won't be as many people showing up. And of course, we'll be masked up, gloved up, the whole nine, very cautious. We don't play games about this. And I think a big part of it is to kind of just show people like, the theaters have your best interest in mind, right? Like if they're willing to be open and tell you, hey, you can come here, like we should be able to trust them that they're not going to put us in danger and they're not going to set us up for failure, right? So that's kind of what we want to show people. We're going to go there, we'll go live. So they get the chance to show people like, please don't be afraid. Like, we got somewhat under control, and we have a way to keep you guys safe.
Yeah. If you're in the danger zones, like that age group, or you're high risk, don't. Please don't. Don't hurt yourself.
But, I think I'm very hopeful that a year from now, when the vaccine is moving through the population and things are getting more-ish back to normal, it's going to be longer than that, I think, ultimately. But I feel like people are going to need that communal experience again, and I'm hopeful that it'll come back. I mean, my problem right now is, you asked me earlier whether I could go home and watch a movie after I work on a movie all day. I don't have a ton of problem doing that, although I don't love to watch stuff at home. I don't mind it, but I much prefer to see it with an audience. It changes your whole perspective.
Absolutely.
And that's something I would really miss. And I'm hoping that, as things, shake out, that theatrical comes back. I really would miss that.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with it. So, like, as a filmmaker, as a person that movies aren't ever going to go away, right? That's not something that will ever happen, at least, like, not that I could tell, right? But there would, it's like a piece of it would be lost if the theaters weren't there. And
absolutely.
I don't know if,
I think so.
I don't know if living in a world like that, can't take a girl to a date to a movie,
that's a major hit. It's like everybody's go-to.
Yeah, it would just be a weird world, where everyone's, and that's weird because it's going that way, where everything is streaming now, where everything is on demand. Like, in a month. It's just
Right.
it's strange. It really is strange, and I would like to get your thoughts on, that how that could be maybe avoided, or what you think about streaming services, because a lot of directors and stuff have gone on record lately against like bringing their movies.
I think that streaming it has a place. It's important. It's not something that's going away. It's the wave of the future. People want to be able to watch stuff, and they want to watch stuff at home. I get it. Televisions look and sound better than they ever have. So you can actually have an experience at home that is pretty good. It's not like it used to be where you couldn't see, like it was pan and scan and it was terrible. But I think that from my perspective, I don't think it has the same cultural import when you don't. I think we desperately need to share experiences right now, especially in a country that's so divided, that when we used to have one thing in common, that we all went to the same movie when it opened, just like the idea that there's a one hit movie that everybody's going to see together.
Yeah.
That's something we do together as a society. Like, I'm not saying that like everybody went to see Endgame and we were all bonding.
They did.
But a lot of people had that experience in common, right? So, or Star Wars, take the family to Star Wars. Take the family. By the way, it can be anything, Lion King, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it is not. It's an active. You have a job when you're an audience member, which is to pay attention, to be focused, to respond with your community. At home, that's not the same. I can turn it off, I can stop it, I can turn it down. When I'm in an audience, I'm making a commitment to sit through that movie and give it my undivided attention with a group of people that we are going to share this experience. And I have had my most profound experiences in terms of being moved by movies are in the theater, not at home. And I don't have a problem with people seeing stuff at home. I just think that culturally we need that theatrical experience. And also I would say I'm obsessed with movie sound. I always have been. And one of the things I love about working at Marvel is we get to work with incredible sound people. So, and by the way, but not just at Marvel, but any movie I've done, I've always had like the ability to really, get into that creative part of the process. I love seeing movies in a theater with it's acoustically correct, with big loud sound that surrounds you. It's like it just grabs you and it completely immerses you. You cannot do that at home unless you have some, I've seen some home theaters that come close, but it's not the same.
I have a really expensive home theater. And like whenever I show somebody, or if someone wants to hear it or whatever, like I have to put a Marvel movie on because it showcases all 7 channels or, whatever, or 5 to 7, depending on, how I have it set up. And for instance, I'll put the beginning of Infinity War, or the when Thor lands in Wakanda, or the fight scene in Endgame. Yeah. Like those are, you are 100% right that the Marvel movies utilize absolutely tremendous. How does that happen? Like, how do you? It's always not confused me, but interested me. Like how one movie will sound like this, but the other one will what goes into making the sound better?
Well, the guys that do the men and women who do those movies, Marvel mostly we work with Skywalker Sound up in Northern California.
Yeah.
And we mix them down in LA at Disney Studios, but they have been, they're artists and they're incredible at it. When you watch a movie, very little of what you're hearing is recorded during the process of making the movie. It's you record the actor's dialogue, but everything else is simulated. In other words, movement, footsteps, cloth, everything that happens has been reproduced so that you can balance it and bring the voices forward when you want. And then of course, the music's a huge part of it, but just the design of the complexity of some of these characters. It's exquisite and it's very detailed. And we start working on it almost the first day of shooting. We start making sounds because I can't use, none of those people sound like they sound when you're, standing in a mocap suit. You don't sound like Hulkbuster.
It always threw me because all right, for audio, for video, that portion of it, that makes sense to me. And I can look at it and I can understand it. But the sound, it's like the Matrix. Like, I love how it comes out. I love how it sounds. No pun intended. But I just don't understand how you create such an elegant and beautiful, how does that, the left channel, the right channel,
it's the exact same approach as making a piece of music. Like, in other words, music, when you record music for an album, you have, a vocalist, drums, maybe you have a guitar, and bass. Those things are all playing together. The way you make a good recording is you mix that and you blend and balance it. You record them separately so you can control them, or in some cases you want it all to be recorded at the same time if it's different sound. But it's really choosing, like,
cowbell.
Yeah, you pick your recording approach, and then you have to mix it and blend it, and it takes months to do it, and it's very intricate. There are layers. So there's music, and then there is the backgrounds, which are just the air around the actors. Then there's the movement, which is the Foley, the footsteps and the cloth. Then there's the vocal performance, ADR, if you change their dialogue, and then there's obviously the music track. So there's so many different components, and in blending that and balancing it, it's editing. Basically, it's another step of editing, except instead of editing instead of cutting something from one shot to another, you're choosing what to bring forward and what to bring backward. So it's a very fun process. I love doing it. It really is where the movie starts to happen, and it's very meaningful to the audience. They really respond to that.
Yeah, I love so like with this system now, it comes, Dolby Atmos is becoming more, integrated with all these things. And like now I have an 85-inch 4K OLED in my living room with Dolby Atmos. It's just like, I really could just stay home, but you're right. I mean, there's something about an IMAX screen that I will never have.
Well, I don't even think it's about the look anymore, right? Because, when I go to, I don't have that by any means. Do I have any, not even remotely close. So when I go to his house and watch a movie with him, I'm getting that same general, like, it's not the look I'm looking for. It's what you said, Jeff. It's the experience, right? Nothing will beat Endgame. When I went and saw Endgame, and the audience reaction and the way we all just kind of giddied up, right? And we're all just a bunch of fanboys and fangirls, and nothing will top that ever. Like that first time Cap, he grabs Mjolnir, that experience will always like hold a near dear spot in my heart, because it really was like, it was great. It really was.
So I was watching some behind the scenes stuff. So Thor's reaction to that, so I was watching the Russo brothers talk about how they shot multiple different reactions that Thor had. Yeah. And then they landed on the only one that made sense, right? Is him being happy. So is that something that you have a part in? Like, while you're editing, like, for instance, the line, like, are you helping say, okay, I think this fits here the best?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And also, I mean, I remember that day we had Hemsworth had to go back to, he was on another movie. We were shooting with him, and we had like different setups so we could really get him into the different pieces of coverage we needed to get him through that day, because we had a short amount of time with him on that day. We had run out of time with him and he was ready to leave. But I remember that we put him on the rock and he just did different versions. And then Joe would try, he said, do this. Now you're happy. Now you're sad. Now that, and Chris will do that. Like, Chris can riff on that stuff. So a lot of it, by the way, is, it's not about it's almost like watching the actor find it, and you go, and I was standing right there going, oh my God, there's like too many that are all going to work. There were they were great. But then when you watch it, I think we swapped it out like 4 or 5 times. We tried different versions with different audiences and stuff, like, just because we weren't sure ourselves, because there were so many good ones, and then landed on I Knew It.
Yes. Which I think it was like, I think you guys made such like the absolute perfect choice, because
absolutely. Yeah, we were talking about that
after Ultron, like when he kind of budged it. There's that.
Yeah. There's that was a whole thing too. I mean, I cut that scene and I was like, well, did he move? Did he really? Like,
okay. Hey, we just did a whole special on like what makes a character worthy, or worthy to wield Mjolnir, and like, does it change along their arc? So I mean, for Captain America, at that time, was he worthy? Or you've made movies that people have philosophical debates about.
I know, it's crazy.
At that time.
Well, we went in depth too.
Well, Widow didn't try, so she could have done it. Maybe she could have done it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But of course, Vision can.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Because we thought
like that brings it back to like what I was saying, like years from now, people are gonna be talking about these movies and using them as examples. I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, somebody teaching film uses Infinity War as a prime example.
I'm pretty sure they already have
See,
like Marvel Cinematic Universe like courses.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
That is 100% something I've heard of.
I'm sure.
Do you guys mind if I run to the bathroom for 3 seconds?
No, go ahead.
All right.
Stop.
I don't usually do this. I don't usually, but get 3 seconds.
Just go.
I'll cut it. I'll cut it out. Don't worry. Just have fun.
Okay,
we'll stop. We'll
take a break. Okay.
Would you like to edit it for us or? No.
No.
I'm happy to, but
I love it, Jeff.
I would like to ask you a question about that.
So Jeff, I said, I mean, we're not really like on camera anymore, right? But what do you think about Patterson? You think you said Matt's like a friend, but what do you think this is gonna actually work?
Yeah, I mean, I think that guy's a really good actor. I mean, did you see The Lighthouse?
No, I haven't, but
oh my God.
I hear crazy things about it.
Dude, that movie's insane.
Yeah,
in a good way. Like it's so crazy, and he's incredible in that movie.
Yeah.
And I think if you watch that film, you'll see Defoe's great in it too. I mean, they're both unbelievable. I that's one of my favorite movies last few years. I think it's really, really good, and it's really disturbing, and you don't know what's going to happen next. And when you can say that about a movie these days, it's unusual. But I find that movie like both scary and compelling. You can't look away. You can't run. You can't hide. And the sound's amazing. The photography's amazing. And that movie, I think that guy's very, very, very talented.
Yeah, I see. I honestly, you know, this isn't like a unique perspective, but I think damn near everybody was like, Patterson, I don't know, the guy from Twilight, right? Like everybody kind of like, I don't know. But after the trailer dropped, me and him watched Fandom together. And when they dropped the trailer and just hearing Matt, like brings up the point I was talking about earlier, hearing Matt talk about Batman and the lore and the character himself, you can see like Matt has a real appreciation for Batman as a character in the lore.
Sure.
So, you know, so I trust what's going to happen. I'm very excited for this movie.
No, he's a good filmmaker. I mean, it's like Nolan. It's like you're handing it to somebody who's just flat out a great filmmaker. So as long as they have a good story to tell, and they're the kind of people who don't even show up to work unless they have a good story to tell. So I think we're going to see something pretty amazing. And and I just like, when you take genre movies can be, they're just because it's a particular genre, no limitation. I mean, you can make something amazing. There's been amazing Westerns. There's been amazing horror films. There've been amazing musicals. I mean, those are genre movies. There's, musicals follow a pattern and they're built around a certain set of expectations. But boy, there's some amazing ones. So you're never limited by a genre. It can be anything.
It's true. Do you have a genre that you prefer to work on?
Oh, well, I mean, I guess I have to say superhero because I'm doing so many of them, but
that's true.
I love comedies, but I don't know. I don't have a particular one.
Okay.
I love horror movies to watch.
I
haven't really done many, if any at all, but I love horror movies.
I do too. That's funny. That's funny that you love horror movies, but you never really worked on any of them. I find that funny and interesting.
Not really. Yeah.
It's interesting. But I guess like just because you don't have to like be a part of everything you love, right? Like you love horror movies, but you don't necessarily have to like work on them. You can still love them and not, be in every aspect of it. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. Yeah. I mean, the fun thing about Marvel though is there's superhero movies as a genre, but there's also there are genre fusion movies. So like for instance, Winter Soldier is it's a paranoid thriller.
Yep.
Done as a superhero movie with that as a backdrop. Iron Man 3 is a buddy cop movie, but it's done as, I mean, like there's different ways you can approach melding genres the way Tarantino does, with superhero.
Yeah. Endgame is very much a drama. I mean, if I've ever seen a drama, it's so right off rip, it's just they make the tone abundantly clear. Like, this movie is depressing. You're going to be sad for most of it. You know, I love that. I absolutely love that. I love that superhero movies have evolved in such a way that they are a fusion of genres. Like, yeah, superhero is its genre in itself, but like you just said, you know, we have things thrillers and we have dramas, and we have this, like, New Mutants, when we went and saw it, had a very, like, they didn't do very good at it, but they attempted to put a horror kind of spin on it. Like, it wasn't bad by any means, but it wasn't very good either. It was just a acceptable movie, right? But I love the fact that they even tried in the first place to put horror into their superhero movie. I love the idea of it, and I hope you know, other directors and screenwriters take that into consideration going in the future. I would love to see it.
No, it'd be interesting. I want to see that. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, and I think with Marvel, so I think that's what I've always loved about Marvel, is that their first 3 phases, they hit, you know, so many different genres. Like you said, you know, the buddy cop, the political thriller, the war movie, you know, with the first
it's true,
the first Avenger. So for me at least, I love the first Avenger, and you know, people always compare it to Patty Jenkins' first Wonder Woman, and you know, I always like to remind them, like, which one came first.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean that movie is also, like, it has a lot of it's definitely inspired by Raiders of the Lost Ark as well.
Oh yeah, you can see it.
You know, the director worked on it in both films, and it has that sort of, it's a period film, but it also it has an old-fashioned adventure quality to it, and I like that movie a lot. That was a really,
I do too. I feel like I went into it wanting. I feel like there was just a tad bit missing. I wanted just more of Cap in, like, I understand that like that, you know, Red Skull and Hydra had to be a part of it, but I just wanted to see more of Cap actually in World War II, right? Like real, like more set pieces, you know, more real
combat
and combat stuff, and just more like actual things that happen, but Captain America happens to be there, you know, because I absolutely adore war films. You know, right after we were talking about our favorite movies, I forgot to mention Apocalypse Now is
it's amazing.
Very high on that list.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that's one of my favorite films.
Love that movie. And I was obsessed with all things war films and TV shows. Have you ever seen Tom Hanks, and I believe Spielberg worked on it with him? It was there were 2 HBO miniseries, Band of Brothers and the Pacific.
Yeah, those are amazing.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And they just blew me away. And that's my kind of, like, anytime a war movie or anything war related comes by, it's like, that's the golden standard if you want to make a war movie, you know?
Oh, sure, for sure. Yeah, those are amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. My favorites.
I liked Hacksaw Ridge.
I didn't see that. I've heard good things about that. I didn't see that.
Very good. It's very good.
Really good.
Yeah, it's a completely different perspective than what we usually get, because he's a medic, right? And he's very much a pacifist. He will not engage in combat. He will not take a life. So it's specifically from the view of a man trying to save lives when nothing but death is going on around him. It's very interesting. I like it a lot.
Yeah. So have you worked on since, like, COVID started? I know you did. You said, you know, you worked on a couple the movies that you did last, but do you think that like the movie industry in Hollywood is moving too fast? Do you think they're moving at the right speed? Do you think they're taking the right precautions in getting the industry back up to where it needs to be?
Well, I did do, when the Comey movie, the Comey Rule, which was on Showtime, that we did finish during the pandemic. We actually screened it. We were previewing the movie the night that it came down that you couldn't go to Europe anymore. It was like the travel ban was installed. And then the next day we had to pack up, and I finished that in my garage. You know, we like had to work remotely with my assistant, and it was difficult. We mixed the movie at Sony Studios, which is in Culver City, and that required us to be in a room with a couple of people, but we had to be socially distanced, and had to be very separated. So the studios are being extremely careful about, and they do a great job of keeping people safe, and that's something they've always done. So
that's good.
I can't say enough about them. Like they just really really are good about that. The idea of getting back into production is hard because, shooting a movie requires a lot of people to be close together, and you're in a hurry and you're moving quickly, and taking precautions takes time, and you have to slow things down. So it is going to affect the industry for years to come. Production is going on though. We're not stopping. I mean, things are getting made. And there's stuff there's Marvel's not stopping, I can tell you that. And there definitely there's stuff, movie filmmakers always have to find a way to make their films. I mean, that's never going to be any different in whether it's television or movies, but you're always struggling to figure out a way to make it and do it safely. So, I think I'm optimistic. I think, we have a really tough few months ahead of us as a country and also as an industry. But I think by a year from now, we can talk again and see how we are. But I have the feeling we're going to bounce back. I just think I think people have to be careful because it isn't the kind of thing where it's just up to you. Yes, you can protect yourself, but we all have to help each other because it is, it's very easy to say, hey, let's just get back to work and do whatever we got to do. We got to make movies. I know, but I mean, I can't make that decision for other people. I can make that decision for myself. Right. So
that's
right. I think it's just going to we have to go slow. And, it's not the end of the world. There's a lot of content out there. It's not like, it's not like you can, there's nothing on Netflix. I mean, or Disney Plus. I mean, it's crazy how much content you can have access to with all these platforms. I mean, just what's on Disney Plus alone is insane. Like, and that's one studio.
Yeah.
Look at, there's like 4. So I think we're going to be okay. We just have to take it slow.
Yeah.
There it is.
I think we can wrap it up because I don't want to keep you, forever because I do.
This is really fun talking.
I do. I would love to keep you forever, Jeff.
I could
You're
go
stuck
on,
with me.
I could go on for another 2 hours. Trust me. But no, I did say I did. I mean, I was watching an interview with Anthony Mackie while he was finishing Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and he just said, like the conditions were just miserable, and like to hear him say that, I was like, I hope that didn't affect his performance or that show, and I don't think it will. But
I think
tough to hear people say that.
Mackey's very reliable. This man, I've seen him in countless films films that you don't even remember he was in. You're like, oh damn, he was
8
in that.
Mile.
Yeah, exactly.
He's such a professional. That dude. I mean, he's got it dialed in, man. He is very, very, very good.
Good guy too.
Yeah. So that's like you said with the casting thing, Marvel does a very excellent job of taking these big hitters and bringing them into the MCU. So when things changing and they're difficult and they're not preferable and things are a little uncomfortable, but these people, they know what they're doing, and in Feige we trust, right?
Well, Marvel has. I mean, this as you saw from there. It's an incredible amount of incredible material. Like they just really have such good stuff to make. And it'll be amazing. I can't wait to see a lot of it. I'm like I didn't know about a lot of it, so I was like, there was stuff where I was like, I mean, like She-Hulk. Where'd that come from?
Dude, we've been talking about that. I'm very excited for that.
What's that going to be? I can't wait to see that.
Tim Roth coming back.
Tim Roth.
She-Hulk's such an obscure character too, so I love the fact that they're bringing her in, and not only are they bringing her in, they're putting her in the big picture. I love it. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
I was thinking maybe after a few of those shows debut, and then hopefully we get to see your project, whatever that is, then we can talk again and go into.
I would love
now
it.
We'll have a whole another 5-6 projects to look. I know from the bottom of my heart that I thank you for joining us tonight, and here's to many times in the future.
There it is.
My mother, she thanks you. And again, we're raising money for her breast cancer. It goes directly to her and helps her pay medical bills and prescription costs, chemo, and if you can donate, please do. we appreciate it, and like I said, I know she does too. So, Justice, if you want to and bring us out.
Of course. Listen, guys, Jeffrey, thank you so much for coming on the show. I genuinely had a great time.
I did too. It was fun.
It's nice to, we've had, a solid amount of guests on, but everybody's kind of been on the DC side of things, for the most part.
I'm happy to represent.
Yeah, so there it is, my man, representing the MCU. We appreciate you so much. And, like I said, Jeffrey was nice enough to come on, so we did a show. So that's really it. It's not Quick Dip, it's not the podcast. It's Jeffrey. This is Jeffrey's show.
All Jeffrey all the time.
So
oh my God,
we appreciate you so much, Jeffrey. You guys,
thanks, you guys.
And we do it for the culture.
Yeah. We make the movies for you guys. So this is just it is really it's awesome to get to hear this, and I'm just grateful for you guys.
There it is.